Good? All right, y'all. So one quick question before we get into this. I wrote a question on the board. According to Scripture, what do we use? What do we use the sun, moon, and stars for? According to Scripture, what do we use the sun, moon, and the stars for? Yoshaya?
Years, seasons.
Good. All right, that's good. Signs, seasons, days, and years. All right, well, let's go there. Let's go to the book of Genesis, chapter 1. We're going to start at verse 14. Genesis 1 and verse 14. Check this out. It says, and Elohim said, let there be lights in the firmament of the heaven to divide the day from the night, and let them be for signs and for seasons and for days and years. So, of course, we all know that those lights in the sky that divide the day from the night is the sun, moon, and stars. Let them be for signs, seasons, days, and years. And let them be for lights in the firmament of the heaven to give light upon the earth, and it was so. And Elohim made two great lights, the greater light to rule the day, which of course is the sun, the lesser light to rule the night. He made the stars also. And Elohim set them in the firmament of the heaven to give light upon the earth, and to rule over the day and over the night, and to divide the light from the darkness. And Elohim saw that it was good. So these things, the sun, moon, and stars, are for signs, seasons, days, and years. All right? So we're going to deal with one aspect of that today. We're going to deal with, the only aspect we're going to deal with is signs. All right? The sun, moon, and stars are for signs, seasons, days, and years. All right? So we understand how they're used for days, right? The sunset, you know what I mean? New day, sunrise. Years, we understand, after, so many months, it's a new year. Signs, seasons, days, and years. How they're used for seasons. Seasons, and remember, it's not talking about winter, summer, spring, and fall, like we think of when we read the word seasons in English. When we read seasons in the scriptures, it's talking about, the Hebrew word is mawat, and it means appointed time. And so the scripture let us know that the moon is appointed for seasons, because it's by the moon that we know when the appointed times are. The appointed times are the holy days. If you go to the book of Psalms, I think it's the 120th chapter and the 19th verse, somewhere in there. It says he appointed the moon for seasons. All right? No, maybe it's Psalms 104. I think it's Psalms 104 and 19. Check that. Psalms 104 and 19, if I remember correctly, it says he appointed the moon for seasons.
Right.
All right? And what that's saying is that the moon determines the seasons, appointed times. So when the Almighty tells us that the Passover is the 14th day of the first month, then we know that it must be a full moon, because the 14th day of any month is the middle of the month. The middle of the month is always a full moon, and the moon is appointed that we know these things. That's what the moon is for. When the Almighty tells us that the Feast of Trumpets is the first day of the 7th month, then if we're calling ourselves keeping the Feast of Trumpets, and we look in the sky that night and it's a full moon, then guess what? It's not the Feast of Trumpets, because the moon is appointed for seasons. Whenever the Feast of Trumpets, since it's the first day of the 7th month, the first day of any month, the moon shall be in new moon phase. And a new moon phase is not a full moon. A new moon phase is a dark moon or a covered moon. All right, go ahead, bro. You got something to say? Okay, so just giving the clarification on that before we get into the one we're going to deal with. signs, seasons, days, and years. A lot of Israelites will deal with this verse, and they'll deal with seasons, days, and years. I very rarely hear people deal with signs. Hardly ever deal with signs. All right? But we're going to deal with signs today. All right? Not only... Go ahead.
Okay, would this be a sign when the slaves was trying to get north, and they was looking at the only way they didn't have no map, no GPS, no nothing, so they would look at the North Star, and knowing they going north. Would that be a sign? Let them know what direction they going.
Definitely a sign. Yep. Yep. That's good. That's real good because it's not days.
They call it a drinking gourd.
Right.
It look like a
Exactly.
drinking gourd. So
The Big Dipper.
Yeah, the Big Dipper. Yeah.
Right. That's right. Yep. Because it's not dealing with days. Right. It's not dealing with seasons, appointed times, the holy days, and it's not dealing with years, and it's not dealing with years. So there's definitely a sign. Our people always use the signs in the sky to let us know what to do and what to do next. And we're about to see it all through Scripture. So the title of this lesson is the Zodiac Prophecies. Because why? What is the Zodiac? The Zodiac is only a collection of stars. So we're going to deal with how did our ancestors use these different collections of stars throughout the Scriptures. All right? And were they mentioned throughout the Scriptures? And if they were mentioned, how did they deal with them? How did they use them? What did they say about these constellations or collections of stars? All right, because the Almighty spoke about it. Okay? Let's go into it. Let's go to the book of Job chapter 38. Let's go there, Job chapter 38. We're going to see where the Almighty mentioned this to Job. Job chapter 38. Can I have somebody read for me? Go. Nobody want to volunteer? I'll read it. Don't worry about it. Job 38. We're going to do 1 through 32. Well, actually, I may skip down, but I'm going to start at verse 1 just to get the context. Job 38, starting at verse 1. And Yahweh answered Job out of a whirlwind and said, Who is this that darkeneth the counsel by words without knowledge? Gird up now thy loins like a man, for I will demand of thee, and answer thou me. Where wast thou when I laid the foundations of the earth? Declare, if thou understand it, if thou hast understanding. So we see what's going on so far. The Almighty is speaking, and he's speaking to Job. And he letting Job know, where were you when I did these things, when I laid the foundation of the earth? So let's see what else the Almighty said. Verse 5. Who hath laid the measures thereof, if thou knowest? Or who hath stretched the line upon it? Whereupon are the foundations thereof fastened? Or who laid the cornerstone thereof? When the morning stars sang together, and all the sons of Elohim shouted for joy. Or who shut up the sea with doors, when it brake forth, as if it had issued out of the womb. Alright, so far the Almighty in the context is speaking, and he's telling Job, look, where were you, Job, when I did all these great things? He's pretty much getting on Job. He's chastising Job, right? Because it's something that Job did. So now let's drop down to verse number 30. All right, because all these verses in between, he continuously going through the same thing. Job, where were you when I did this and that? Do you understand this? Declare it if you have understanding. Now watch what he started to tell him around the 30th verse. And he says, the waters are hid as with a stone, and the face of the deep is frozen. 31. Canst thou bind the sweet influences of Pleiades, or loose the bands of Orion? 32. Canst thou bring forth Matharos in his season, or canst thou guide Artorius with his sons? These are the two verses I want to deal with, verse 31 and 32. What is the Almighty telling Job right here in the 31st and 32nd verse? I'm going to read it again. 31. Canst thou bind the sweet influences of Pleiades, or loose the bands of Orion? All through this chapter, he's telling you, look, Job, I did this, I did that, and where were you when I did all these things? Declare it if you know it. Then he said, Job, can you do this? Can you bind the sweet influences of Pleiades, or loose the bands of Orion? Canst thou bring forth Mazzaroth in his season, or canst thou guide Artorius with his sons? What is he talking about here?
Constellations.
Constellations. Pleiades is a constellation. What is a constellation? Nothing but a grouping or a cluster of stars. So why are these mentioned in the scripture? What do they mean? Orion. Orion is a constellation. Then it says in verse 32, canst thou bring forth Mazzaroth in his season? What is Mazzaroth? Guess what that is? How do you translate that into English? Guess what that word is? Zodiac. You look it up in the Hebrew, that's what it means, the zodiac. And the zodiac is just not one constellation, it's all the different constellations or groupings of stars. Pleiades is one grouping of stars. Orion is one grouping of stars. Zodiac is all the different grouping of stars. And the Almighty, the Hebrew word for it is Mazzaroth. Mazzaroth, you look it up, it just simply means zodiac. So the Almighty is saying, can you bring forth Mazzaroth or the zodiac in his season? Because the Almighty is saying this is the things that he does. Or canst thou guide Artorius with his sons? This is another constellation. Alright? So what does this mean to scripture? Because like I said, in Genesis 1 in verse 14, people use seasons, days, and years, but they don't use signs. Alright? The word signs in Genesis 1 and 14 is the Hebrew word awath. And what does awath mean in Hebrew? It means to know something beforehand. That's what it means. It means a omen. O-M-E-N. If you look up the word omen, that's the definition it'll give you. If you look up the Hebrew word awath, which is signs in Genesis 1 and 14, it gives you the definition of omen. Well, what is an omen? If you look up omen in English, it means something known beforehand. So my question to the class is, what did they know beforehand by these groupings of stars? What did they know beforehand? Well, one key thing they did know beforehand, let's look at it. Let's go to the book of, where do I want to go? Matthew chapter 2. Let's go here and see what they knew beforehand. And these people, they wasn't reading scriptures to know this. They did not have the scriptures to know this. Matthew chapter 2, I'm going to read verses 1 through 12. So, the Almighty said, use the lights in the sky, sun, moon, and stars for signs. Sign, a what, something known beforehand. Matthew 12, starting in verse 1. I'm sorry, not Matthew 12, Matthew chapter 2, starting in verse 1. It says, now when Yahushua was born in Bethlehem of Judea in the days of Herod the king, behold, there came wise men from the east to Jerusalem, saying, where is he that is born King of the Jews? For we have seen his star in the east, and come to worship him. So they seen what? His star. They wasn't reading the scriptures. They seen something in the sky, and came to worship him. And when he had gathered all the chief priests and scribes of the people together, and commanded of them where Christ should be born, and they said unto him, in Bethlehem of Judea, for thus it is written by the prophet, and thou Bethlehem, in the land of Judah, art thou not least among the princes of Judah, for out of thee shall a governor, and shall rule my people Israel. Then Herod, when he had privately called the wise men, inquired of them diligently what time the star appeared. And he sent them to Bethlehem, and said, go and search diligently for the young child, and when ye have found him, bring him again, bring me word again, that I may come and worship him also. When they had heard the king, they departed, and lo, the star that they saw in the east went before them, till it came and stood over where the young child was. When they saw the star, they rejoiced with exceedingly joy. And when they were come in the house, they saw the young child with Mary and his mother, and fell down and worshipped him. And when they had opened their treasures, they presented unto him gifts, gold and frankincense and myrrh. And being warned of Elohim in a dream that they should not return to Herod, they departed into their own country another way. So, what's the obvious implication? These people knew that the Messiah was coming, not based on reading scriptures and prophecy. They knew based on what? The sun, the moon, the star. Based on the star. Is that not what the Almighty said to do in Genesis 1:14? He used the lights in the sky for what? Signs. Signs is awat in Hebrew, something known beforehand. So did not they know beforehand that the Messiah was going to come at this time? By something in the sky, by a star. All right, these constellations of stars speak to the Messiah. They speak to the coming of the Messiah all throughout the scriptures. These constellations or groupings of stars speak to the coming of the Messiah. And I'm going to show you more in detail about how that works. All right, so let's go. Let's go to Job chapter 26. Let's look at a couple things. Look diligently at the understanding of these scriptures, because these are some of the scriptures that people read over and they miss. Job chapter 26 in verse 13. Now watch what this says. A lot of times people will go there, Job 26 and 13, they'll read it and just bypass it and read it over. Well, what is this? What is he talking about? What does this mean? We want to know what this means. Job 26 and 13 says, by his spirit he hath garnished the heavens. His hand hath formed the crooked serpent. What does that mean? By the Most High Spirit he has garnished the heavens. His hand hath formed the crooked serpent. What is that? What is garnishing the heavens? What is forming a crooked serpent? Talking about something in the sky. What is it?
Garnishing means like decorating, make it pretty. Right?
Exactly. He garnished, he decorated the heavens by his spirit. This is what the Most High did. And how did he decorate the heavens? By all, when you look up, all of them pretty stars shine. He decorated the heavens. And then it says, his hand has formed the crooked serpent. What is the crooked serpent? The crooked serpent is a constellation. One of the constellations is supposed to be a crooked serpent. Well, why is this in the scriptures? And what does this mean? I'm going to declare to you towards the end of this lesson what all of these different constellations really mean and what they stand for. Right? Because they wouldn't be in the scriptures for nothing. And they're not pagan. The Almighty said he did this. He formed the crooked serpent. So why is this in the Hebrew scriptures if we don't deal with the stars? We don't bow down and worship the stars. That's against the commandment. But do we know something from the stars? Yes, the same thing like we know something from the moon. When I see a full moon, I know it's the middle of the month. I could have been in a coma for 10 years and I wake up and I look in the sky at night and it's a full moon, it's the middle of the month. I might not know which month it is yet. It could be the first month, the second month, the third month, but whatever month we're in, it's the middle of the month. Around the 14th, 15th day of the month. Why? Because it's a full moon. So we know something from looking in the sky. Like Mike said earlier, our ancestors getting off of them slave ships coming to America, they trying to get to freedom. They trying to go north. They escaping from the white man down in the south, trying to head up to Canada and all these places of the north where slavery was, where they wouldn't be slaves. They knew which way was north. By what? Looking up in the sky, following that Big Dipper, they call it. Follow them constellation of stars that look like a big panhandle, right? They called it the drinking gourd. Harry Tubman them sung a song about it. The white men didn't know what they were talking about. They sung a song while they out there working in the field. Follow the drinking gourd. Meaning whenever y'all want to run, you follow them stars that look like a drinking gourd. And they think they just singing songs that don't mean nothing. Our people was always wise and smart. You know? This is the same way we got to deal in America today. We got to deal with them in that same way today. Don't let them know that we know, but we know. You know? That's how you got to deal with them. Alright? So this is what it's talking about. The Most High hand had formed a crooked serpent. Just look it up. Grab a concordance and look up crooked serpent. It's going to say the constellation by that name. The constellation, again, is a grouping of stars. Why is the Almighty keep talking about these grouping of stars. Orion, Pleiades, Mazzaroth means the zodiac itself. All right. So what does this mean? Let's go to the book of Psalms, chapter 19. The book of Psalms, the 19th chapter. So now, whenever we read Genesis 1 and 14, at the end of this lesson, we're gonna know, okay, signs, seasons, days, and years. We're gonna understand what signs mean now. Seasons, days, and years. I think we already had the seasons, days, and years, but we're gonna get the signs now. What I say, Psalms chapter 19. And we're gonna read verses 1 through 6 of Psalms 19. Psalms 19 and verse 1 says, wait a minute. The heavens declare the glory of Elohim, and the firmament showeth his handiwork. Same thing. The heavens is showing the Most High's handiwork. How he placed this star here, this star there, placed some of them in the group together. The heavens showeth his handiwork. Day by day uttereth speech, and night after night showeth knowledge. Nobody is dealing with that today. All right? Nobody is saying the night sky has knowledge. No Israelites are saying it. Right? But he says, day after day uttereth speech, and night after night showeth knowledge. So again, what type of knowledge are we getting from the night sky? Well, evidently in Matthew chapter 2, the wise men had knowledge from the night sky. They didn't have the scripture. It didn't say they were reading the scripture in the book of such and such and knew that he was coming. It said they looked in the sky and they seen the star and knew the Messiah coming. Let's go this way. Let's go to the east and find it. So what is the Almighty talking about? Night after night, showeth knowledge. This is what he's talking about. Look at this next verse. There is no speech nor language where their voice is not heard. So in every language, their voice is heard. Who is the there is talking about? These stars, these constellations. In every language, people were like, these stars mean something. There is no speech nor language where their voice is not heard. Verse 4. Their line, meaning these stars, these constellations, their line is going out throughout all the earth. And their words to the end of the world. That has happened. In them hath he set a tabernacle for the sun. A tabernacle means to dwell, a dwelling place. In them has he set a tabernacle for the sun. Meaning the sun passes through these different constellations, right? That's the sun's tabernacle. He set a tabernacle for the sun in them, in these different constellations. That makes sense? Go ahead.
By you saying that, see, the white man would tell you in a minute the sun don't move. Now you just saying right there, this saying the sun do move because it goes through the tabernacle.
Right,
So
exactly.
the sun is moving.
Exactly. I think that they're wrong. I think the sun and the moon are moving according to scripture, this verse and other verses. And more than like the earth is stationary, but definitely I know the sun and moon is moving. Wow, what else can we go? Remember what happened in Joshua 10 and 13. That's how we know to use the book of Joshua, right? Because he said, Joshua prayed and said to the Most High, make the sun and the moon stand still. Then it said, is it not written in the book of Joshua? So the sun and moon was obviously moving. And then it said the Almighty hearkened or listened unto Joshua and made the sun and moon stand still for a period about a whole day. Then after that, they continued to rotate. So yeah, definitely, the sun is moving, definitely. And when you look at it, you can tell it's moving. It look like it's moving. Just watch it. It come up in the east. It go up about midday. It's gonna be straight above your head, and then as it go down and down, then it's gone. But we seeing things very clearly with our eyes, and they say, "Now you didn't see that. That's not what it was." You know what I mean? They do the same thing. We watched our brother Eric Gardner get choked in New York, and they said they came on TV and said that wasn't a chokehold. But we all watched it on YouTube. He was like this around his neck, and he kept saying like 12 times, "I can't breathe," and then he couldn't breathe and he died. And they said he didn't choke him. Like, he did choke him. Like, come on.
Right.
They's doing the same thing. Like, oh no, the sun is not moving, but it's obviously moving. The moon is not moving, but it's obviously moving. Every night you watch the moon, it's going to get bigger and bigger. every night it gets smaller and smaller. The sun come up and we watch the rotation all day. You sit in your chair and watch it all day. And now it's not moving, but it is moving. Next they're gonna tell us the birds are not really flying. Them birds not flying. It's just the earth going so fast it look like they're flying. They give you a good explanation too, like because the earth is traveling so fast and you whipping around, so the birds really just jumping, but the earth whip around so fast that you think they're flying. Those are the type of explanations they give us, you know. But yeah, this man has been lying to us from day one, you know. So we know what the truth is. All right, so this is dealing with these constellations. So did I finish out the last couple verses? Oh, okay, verse 5 and 6. I need to finish out 5 and 6. It says, wait a minute, let me go back to 4 first. Their line is going out throughout all the earth, their words to the end of the world. In them has he made a tabernacle for the sun, which is as a bridegroom coming out of his chamber, and rejoices as a strong man to a race. What is it talking about? In them, these constellation of stars, has he made a tabernacle for the sun. And then he's declaring that in verse 5, which is as a bridegroom coming out of his chamber, and rejoices as a strong man to run the race. A bridegroom coming out of his chamber. A bridegroom is the man coming out of his chamber to go marry his wife. What is that talking about? We about to declare what it's talking about. Verse 6 says, his going forth is from the end of the heaven, and his circuit unto the ends thereof. It's talking about how the sun go from the end of the heaven, his circuit. He going around in his course. The book of Enoch explains how the suns go around in his course. So the sun is definitely moving. And there is nothing hid from the heat thereof. The whole earth. Alright, so now, what is it talking about in verse 5? As a bridegroom coming out of his chamber. We are what? The bride. Everybody knows it say that in the New Testament, right? What do it say? The Messiah is coming back for his what? His bride. Who is his bride? Those of us that keep his commandments and live this righteous life. He coming back for his bride. Let's go to Matthew chapter 25. Don't forget what we just read right here in the book of Psalms 19 in verse 5, talking about a bridegroom coming out of his chamber. And remember, I told you these constellations are nothing but looking forward to what the Messiah is going to do. They're showing us in these patterns of constellations in the sky, when we understand the true meaning of these things, all this pointing forth is who the Messiah really is and what his job is going to do, what he came to do. Now watch this, Matthew 25. I'm going to start at verse 1 and read down to verse 13 of Matthew 25. We're going to see farther about this bridegroom. What is it talking about in the book of Psalms? People go by the Old Testament only and read that and be like, what is it talking about? There's no precept to it. It don't make no sense. What do you mean as a bridegroom? He was just talking about the stars. Now he's talking about a bridegroom.
Right.
A man getting married to a woman. Where's the connection? Here's the connection right here. There's those of us that understand who the Messiah really is. Matthew 25, starting at verse 1. Then shall the kingdom of heaven be likened unto 10 virgins, which took their lamps, and went forth to meet the bridegroom. The bridegroom. But he's talking about the kingdom of heaven. The Messiah is the bridegroom, right? He's talking about the kingdom of heaven. And 5 of them were wise, and 5 were foolish. They that were foolish took their lamps, and took no oil with them. But the wise took oil and their vessels with their lamps. And the bridegroom tarried, and they all slumbered and slept. And at midnight there was a cry made, Behold, the bridegroom cometh, go ye out to meet him. Now remember, this is a parable concerning the kingdom of heaven. Then all of those virgins arose and trimmed their lamps. And the foolish said unto the wise, Give us of your oil, for our lamps are going out. But the wise answered, saying, Not so, lest there be not enough for us and you, but go ye rather to them that sell, and buy for yourselves. Verse 10. And while they went to buy, the bridegroom came, and they that were ready went in with him to the marriage, and the door was shut. Afterward came also the other virgins, saying, Lord, Lord, open to us. But he answered and said, Verily, verily, I say unto you, I know you not. Verse 13, Watch therefore, for ye know neither the day nor the hour wherein the Son of Man cometh. So the bridegroom is just talking about a parable about when the Messiah is going to come.
Right.
He is the bridegroom. And this constellations in the sky, there is a constellation in the sky that's talking about the bridegroom coming. And that's why I said all of these groupings of stars were showing forth the Messiah, who he was, and what he was going to do. I'll give you another example. It's a month that they call what? Virgo. Virgo is what? What is Virgo? What I mean, like, it's a woman, it's a virgin. Why is it a constellation called Virgo? Why is she a virgin? Because the Messiah was born of a virgin.
Good. So actually what I'm getting is, if we really knew what we were looking at, we would be able to, just by looking up at the stars, know when the Messiah is coming back the second time, because it should be a sign, it should be something, but we don't know what
Not
it is.
that. We know a lot of stuff, but we won't know when he come back the second time. Because that will break through. He said, no man to know when he come back the second time.
I mean, but yeah, you don't know when the stars, that constellation will happen, but if you look up at the time, you might, you know what I mean, it might just that one time thing that he here.
Right. I'm going to tell you what you would know. You would know this. Okay. Some of the people that, it's some different people, rather Old Testament only Israelites, some of these Egyptian people, this and that, they'll tell you that they don't believe in the Messiah in the New Testament. And then they'll give you this information. They'll say, see, it's a book a guy wrote. It's called The 12 Crucified Saviors. This is what they'll say, right? So in this book the guy wrote, he go through history and he'll say, in America, in ancient times, the Aztec people, the Native Americans, they had a god named, I don't need to pronounce his name or whatever, but his name started with a Q, right? So I'm not sure exactly how to spell it, but they had a god by his name, right? And so that god, in their stories, they said that he was going to be born of a virgin, he was going to have 12 disciples, he was going to heal people, and he was going to be the Son of the Most High. Sounds similar, don't it? What the same? Well, you go to Egypt. In ancient times, thousands of years before the true Messiah was born and came to the earth, the Egyptians had a god. They called him by an Egyptian name. He was supposed to be born of a virgin, have 12 disciples, heal people, and be the Son of the Most High. When you go all the way to Asian countries, they had a god that was supposed to be born of a virgin. All these same things. But all these people had no connection to each other. The Greeks and the Romans. But they all had their own name for this certain god. How did all these people who had no connection to each other in ancient time happen to make up? If they just missed, how did they all just make up a god and make up the same story about this god? Because it all came from the same source. It was one source, and that one source was the stars. Because they all knew what these stars really meant. But those, even in their own writing, these people never came. They were just myths. You see what I'm saying? There was never no Egyptian real person that lives, no god with a eagle head and a man body. But you see it all over their drawings. You know what I mean? This person never existed, but they had stories about this, and they come, and you'll match it up with a lot of the same stories as the Messiah. Why? Because Adam knew all these things. All the nations come from Adam through Noah. Noah knew all these things when they was all on the boat. Everybody descended from Ham, Shem, or Japheth. And these stories were always passed down of the true meaning of these stars in the sky. So therefore, all these other nations, pagan nations, they made up these stories like, okay, well, if that's what that really means, somebody's coming and he gonna heal people, he gonna be the Son of God, and he gonna die for the sins of the world. Everybody knew that because this is what the true meaning of these stars mean. That's why the Most High told us in Psalms that we just read, it said, there's no speech nor language where their voice is not heard. That's what he meant by that. They all knew what these stars meant. And towards the end of this lesson, we're going to pull out, we're going to go through these constellations.
Where's my book?
We're going to bring this book out. It's called The Truth. It's written by an Israelite brother in New York. He wrote this book. In that side of this book, he going to go through all the constellations, what they look like, what they supposed to represent, and what they all mean. And how it all go down to the Messiah. From Virgo to Leo the lion. What does it obviously mean? This is the Messiah coming back as the Lion of Judah, ruling. You know what I mean? These are all the true meanings, but the nations has now polluted it. Why do all the nations have 12 different constellations? If it's just something that's made up, why didn't one nation have 14 of them? Or another nation have 20? You know what I mean? So, let's look at a couple more of these scripts. And check this out. Where we at? Was it Matthew 25, 1 through 13? Did I read all the way down to 13? Yeah. Okay. All right, cool. From here, let's go to Psalms 147.
What did you say?
The book of Psalms, chapter 147. So, just like everything else, the Almighty tells us what to do with things and what not to do with things. You see what I'm saying? Like a pig, he said, you don't eat it, but it's good to clean up the earth, keep stuff clean around. All right? With the stars, he tells us what to do and what not to do. We got commandments of what not to do with the sun, the moon, and stars. And this is what the other nations are doing, and they breaking the commandments. The Almighty said, do not bow down to them nor worship them. Don't prostrate yourself before you. Don't be dismayed by the signs of heaven. That's what we don't do. But we use them for signs, seasons, days, and years, and that's it. All right? So where we at? Psalms chapter 147. Let's look at the fourth verse. He telleth the number of the stars. He calleth them all by their names. So all these stars are important to the Most High. He telleth the number of them. He named them all, and they all have a name. All right? They all have a special name. And when they group together, they form a constellation. And all the constellations together are called Mazzaroth in Hebrew, or Zodiac, what it will translate to in English. All right? Book of Job, chapter 9. Let's go there, Job chapter 9, and let's look at verses 1 through 9. Job chapter 9, starting at verse 1. And Job answered and said, I know it is so of a truth, but how should man be just with Elohim? For if he will contend with him, he cannot answer him 1 of 1,000. And he is wise in heart and mighty in strength, who hath hardened himself against him, who hath prospered, which removeth the mountains, and they know it not, which overturneth them in his anger. All right, read down. Verse 6. Which shaketh the earth out of her place, and the pillars thereof tremble. Verse 7. Which commandeth the sun, and it riseth not, and sealeth up the stars. Which alone spreadeth out the heavens, and treadeth upon the waves of the sea, which maketh Arcturus, Orion, and Pleiades, and the chambers of the south. So again, Job is realizing, look, we can't do these things, but the Almighty did all these things. And again, mentioned in these constellations again, Arcturus, Orion, and Pleiades. The Almighty has did these things and formed these different constellations. But for what? Why did the Almighty do these things? He's not doing things that doesn't mean anything. He's not doing things for no reason, because these things definitely mean anything. This is how the wise men knew the Messiah was coming. And I'm going to show you the rest of the stuff that was known through these things as well. All right? Let's just look at Revelation chapter 12. We're going to look at 1 through 5. Look at how this has looked in this day. Revelation chapter 12. verse 1 through 5. Check this out. It says, Revelation 12 and 1. And there appeared a great wonder in heaven, a woman clothed with the sun and the moon under her feet, and upon her head a crown of 12 stars. And she, being with child, cried, travailing in birth, and pain to be delivered. And there appeared another wonder in heaven, and behold, a great red dragon, having 7 heads and 10 horns, and 7 crowns upon his heads. And his tail drew the third part of the stars of heaven, and did cast them to the earth. And the dragon stood before the woman, which was ready to be delivered, for to devour her child as soon as it was born. And she brought forth a man-child, who was to rule all nations with a rod of iron. And her child was caught up unto Elohim and to his throne. So let's go back to the top verse and look what it first off says in verse number 1. And there appeared a great wonder in heaven, a woman clothed with the sun and the moon under her feet, and upon her head a crown of 12 stars. This woman represents what? The nation of Israel. And the nation of Israel brought forth what? A man-child, talking about the Messiah. This man-child was to rule all nations with the rod of iron. But why was this woman, who's represented as the nation of Israel in this parable, so to speak, why is she clothed with the sun, and why is the moon under her feet? What is that telling us, that the moon is under her feet? Whenever something is under your feet, it's showing that you have rulership over that thing. So she had rulership over the moon. Well, what does the moon represent? The moon is what? Months and time, things like that. It's saying at this time, Israel is going to have what? Eternal life. We have conquered this thing called time, because we have eternal life. The moon under her feet, and upon her head a crown of 12 stars. Remember, when the Messiah come back and we get our crowns, we have eternal life then. This is just a symbolic way of telling us the same thing. The nation of Israel now, at this time, is receiving eternal life. The moon under her feet. The moon to us is what? The months. Right? Every month. Time. Dealing with time. So that's what it's showing us. Alright? So let's look through these for a minute. I want to show some of these constellations. Alright, check it out. So, can y'all see that from here? A little bit? Yeah. And then when you get it back, I'm going to read it. So, this is one constellation. This is the constellation Virgo. Constellations, they also have what is called deacon signs, which is like miniature signs that go along with them, but we're not going to deal with the deacon signs as well. Just going to deal with all the main constellations. So just look at that, look at the picture. All they are a grouping of stars, but just like when you were a kid in like elementary school, they'll give you a paper and it's a dot here, and all you do with a pencil is connect the dots. Once you connect all the dots, it makes a picture of something, whether a lion, a tiger, anything. That's the same thing that you do with the constellations. You connect these dots and it makes pictures of whatever that constellation is. That's why it's called by that name. Virgo is called Virgo because, as you can see, when those dots are connected in that picture, you're going to see a woman representing the Virgin.
What month is Virgo?
I don't remember. Anybody know? I'm not sure. They'll probably tell you in that book, though. I just don't remember. I think it's around March, April, but I can't be for sure.
It's representing, well, I'm just speculating, because that's representing the Virgin. Maybe that was the month Yahweh was born.
Yeah, right. I think it may be a lot of truth to that, too. And notice the picture of Virgo the Virgin, and notice that she'll have something in her hand. And we're going to declare what that is. So all we looking at is that sun, moon, and stars are used for signs, seasons, days, and years. These are the true meanings of these seasons, and it's verified throughout history. That's why before we started this teaching lesson, when I showed y'all all of the names of the 7th day of the week all over the world, and they all mean the day of rest. It's the same thing when we dealing with this. All of these nations all across the world made up a story about somebody who's going to come that's going to be the Son of the Most High. He was going to die for the sins of the people. He was going to heal people and have 12 disciples. And they all stem from what these different constellations really represented to Adam, to Eve, and all the immediate people that followed them, to Noah, Ham, Shem, and Japheth, and this knowledge spread all over the world. Because it all come from one source, and that one source is a source that man can't change. Man can't tamper with the sun and the moon and the stars. They can't move one star from here or over there. You see what I'm saying? They could trick you with calendars all day long. You know, like when they changed the calendar in 1582. You know? But they can't change the sun, moon, and stars. There's nothing they can do with it. They can't make the sun speed up. They can't make it slow down. They can't make a new moon come every 40 days. If they would have been tried it. They can't do that. Only thing they can do is lie to us. But when they lie to us, we looking right at the sign like, no, you're lying. I see it right here. You know? I see the rotation of the moon. We could follow it every day. It takes 29 and a half days for the moon to go around and make another new moon. So I just wanted y'all to see the picture real quick. Once y'all see the picture, then check it out. Notice she got a little like reef or something in her hand. To give you an explanation, I'm gonna read it. It says, and again, this was like brother named Yawain from New York. He wrote this book, but it says the zodiac sign depicts a woman holding a child in her arm, a branch in her right hand, and an ear of corn pointing down in her left hand. The constellation is a symbolic representation of Yahushua as a prophetic branch, and the seed, a seed from the nation of Israel, symbolically represented by the woman or virgin. The seed was manifested as Yahushua, and as a seed must fall to the ground and die in order to give life to a new tree, Christ will also suffer the death and be resurrected from the dead as part of the great redeeming of the world. That's the true meaning of this zodiac sign. That's why the Aztecs had a god. I might be spelling his name wrong. You can look it up. In America, way before the white man ever came over.
It's a very long name.
That was his name. I could be spelling it a little wrong, but in America, the Native American Aztec Indians worship a god by this name, and they said that this god was going to die for the sins of the people. He was going to be the Son of the Most High. He was going to heal people. He was going to come one day and have 12 disciples. How did they know that? And they said they said he was going to be born of a virgin, and this was his name in their language. There was nobody that came during that time. They just had a story that somebody gonna come and he gonna be born of a virgin, and these are the things he gonna do. The Egyptians. That's why people say y'all copy that story from Egypt. No, we didn't. The Egyptians had a god that they said he was gonna come and die for the sins of the world, be the Son of the Most High, had 12 disciples, heal people, and this and that. Why? Because they understood what this sign really meant in that day. Everything has been polluted. There was nobody that came during that time that did these things, ever. But they said somebody was going to come and do this. So let's go to the next sign. It's the same thing. The next sign is Libra. The scales are balanced, right? You see the sign? And then I'll just pass it around later. Everybody can look at the signs. I'll just go through them and read them all. You see the scales, the balanced scales with Libra, and the other signs that go with it. Then it says, this sign depicts the fact that the first coming of Christ was to pay the price for the redemption of the Israelites by his death. Egyptians, Romans, Aztec, Native Americans, some Asian culture, the Greeks, all these people that had no connection with each other had a God that was supposed to do all these things because of this sign. He was going to come and die for the sins of the people. That's how they knew that. First they knew he was going to be born of a virgin. Now they know he's going to die for the sins of the people. And all the nations said that and had no connection with each other. The Native American Aztecs had no connections with the Egyptians. And so how did they ironically happen to make up the same story? That's the question that we need to ask. How did these nations all around the world with no connection to each other, miles and miles away, happen to make up the same story? When you were in school, junior high school, whatever, and the teacher tell you, go home and write a story, and you make up any story out of your head, you don't come back and your friend made up the exact same story you made up. That don't happen. So how did all these nations happen to make up the same story? The only difference, they called them by different names according to the language that they spoke. All right, so the next one is Scorpio. And again, I'll pass around later, but notice, when you see it, I see a crooked snake here. We read in the book of Psalms, his hand has formed in the heavens the crooked serpent. This is what the Most High is talking about. It's a crooked snake here. And what does this sign mean? This sign depicts Christ as the mighty man wrestling with the giant serpent. We know who that is. The serpent is the devil. His foot is crushing the head of the scorpion. We can read this in Genesis. What happened after the fall? It said about the serpent. Then it said his head shall bruise his heel, and his foot shall step on his. I may be quoting it wrong. We can go if you need to. Y'all familiar with what I'm talking about? This is what it's talking about. That was another Zodiac type of prophecy or reading. What's going to happen? What the Messiah is really going to do? The Almighty teaches us things all throughout. So it says, okay, this sign depicts Christ as the mighty man wrestling with the giant serpent. His foot is crushing the head of the scorpion, and his heel is on the other foot is kicked back from sitting upon the giant scorpion. This sign shows that in the spiritual battle of truth, redemption, and sacrifice, Christ will have to suffer the death. All right, so I'm going to run through the signs. Anybody want to look at it? We pass them all out. You look at the signs. Some of them you'll see the same signs that we read in the scripture.